Hello everyone. My presentation for today is almost the same, but not quite. Analyzing mimicry in White Sargasso Sea. These are my academic information. Now, has it ever happened to you that you find yourself in a group and you find that you are not quite accepted by them? And in that situation, what would you do? Imagine you find yourself inferior to all of your peers. The most natural thing you might do is that you would mimic the people who are accepted. This concept is based on that Homi Bhabha's concept of mimicry, where colonized people mimic the colonizers, and how we will see how it operates in wide Sargasso Sea. We will see how Antoinette's mimicry as a lens to understand her complex struggles with identity and belonging. I would like to start my presentation with this quote. So, between you, I often wonder who I am, and where is my country, and where do I belong, and why was I ever born at all? This quote shows us Antoinette's existential crisis and her deep desire to feel belonging somewhere. And please keep this in mind because this actually justifies her mimicry as well. So, my research question for today is: to what extent does Antoinette's mimicry in White Sargasso Sea reflect her struggle to navigate and resist colonial and patriarchal power structures? About the author, Jean Rees, much has already been said about her, so I will try to keep it brief. She is known for her modernist writing style and marked by fragmented narratives, interior monologues, and lyrical prose. And her works often explore themes of exile, loneliness, gender dynamics, and the psychological impact of colonialism. Here are a few of her notable works as well. Now, White Sargasso Sea. This is a post-colonial prequel to Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, and it focuses on the untold story of Bertha Mason, the mad woman in the attic. So this novel is basically about Antoinette Causeway, and she's a Creole woman, and we see her marrying this Englishman, and he names her Bertha. And in this, how there is a, you can say, her identity is questioned by herself again and again, and this leads to her descent into madness, fueled by cultural dislocation, betrayal, and the oppressive forces of colonial and patriarchal power. Now, let us understand mimicry. Okay. So, understanding mimicry. This concept is given by Homi K. Bhabha in his essay of Mimicry and Men, the Ambivalence of Colonial Discourse. And it is a complex psychological and cultural process, as we saw. It is when the colonized people are mimicking their colonizers in order to be accepted by them. And the main quote that captures the entire mimicry process is this: that almost the same, but not quite. It means that no matter how much they try to mimic their colonizers, they will never be accepted. They will be almost there, but not quite. So it is a sad process, we can say, and it will ultimately lead to failure, of course. And there is a fundamental contradiction we find out through mimicry in the colonial power. So the colonizers want the colonized people to accept their culture. They want them to accept their religion, their languages, and act like them. But at the same time, they don't want them to step equal to them. They want to maintain their superior status. And there is inherent instability in colonial relationships because of this. And we see that this mimicry sometimes creates psychological tension. An example we will see in White Sargasso Sea. And Homi K. Bhabha says that it's not necessarily a passive process. It can also be a strategic tool, a strategic form of resistance. It is like talking back to colonizers in their own language, the way they will understand. Now, mimicry in White Sargasso Sea. We see that Antoinette's need for belonging and how strong it is. So, for her, mimicry is a survival strategy. She is not mimicking the English culture out of her own fancy. She has to do it to feel accepted, at least there. And Antoinette attempts to imitate English cultural norms as a way to gain acceptance and power, because she finds herself in a very powerless situation. Even her mother does not hold power, because as a Creole woman, she is also alienated. So Antoinette only sees this opportunity and wants to grab it and wants to start gaining acceptance. And we see that it is most seen here in this quote when when the mother gets married to an English man, and she says, "We ate English food now, beef and mutton, pies and puddings. I was glad to be like an English girl, but I missed the taste of Christophine's cooking. So we see that she's trying her best to mimic the English culture. She likes being the English girl, but at the same time, she cannot. You can say disconsider her own heritage. She's not free from that. She misses that as well, because that is also a major part of her identity. And we see attempting to conform to English societal expectations throughout the novel. She tries to do this. She tries to conform to English societal expectations, and she also seeks marriage to an Englishman, Mr. Rochester. Somewhere we can say because of this, as a means of social mobility. But ultimately, it leads to failure. Her mimicry does not lead to successful integration. And because of her mimicry, she suffers loss of original cultural identity, and she, you can say, hangs in the middle. She belongs nowhere now, and she is alienated from both the sides, from the colonized side as well as the colonizer culture. And because of this, there is a fractured sense of self, and this somewhere increases her psychological inability. In this quote, it is described best. She says, "Bertha is not my name. You are trying to make me into someone else, calling me by another name." So we see that at first, after this mimicry, she is uncertain of who she is. On top of that, her English husband changes her identity entirely. And this she finds she's not able to accept this. And because of this, there are psychological instability. Now we see failure of mimicry as a resistance tool. As Homi Bhabha said, that it can be used as a resistant tool. But here we see contradictory things. We see that mimicry does not expose the artificiality of power, at least in this novel. It instead it demonstrates the rigid boundaries of colonial identity. We see how there are these rigid identities, and Antoinette can never really escape them. And no matter what she does, she will never be accepted. And it is quite sad that her only deep desire is to feel accepted. So we see Antoinette's mimicry reveal the impossibility of crossing these cultural boundaries. No matter how she acts, no matter how English she tries to become, she will never be that. So with each failed attempt at mimicry, she is further isolated from who she truly is. Every time she tries to mimic it, there is failure, and this ultimately leads to her psychological breakdown.
10 मिनट में प्रेजेंटेशन है। पारो को क्या प्रेजेंट करेंगे?
मुझे तो बहुत भूख लगी है।
And this ultimately leads to her psychological breakdown from who she truly is. Every time she tries to mimic it, there is failure, and this ultimately leads to her psychological breakdown. Now, to conclude, we saw that mimicry as a way of social acceptance for Antoinette, and the psychological impact it left on her, and how it is not used as a resistance tool in this. So, to conclude my presentation, I would say Antoinette's attempt to mimic the culture of her oppressors highlight her desire for acceptance and belonging. However, her mimicry ultimately fails, as it neither allows her to fully assimilate nor effectively challenge the power structures around her. Instead, it deepens her psychological fragmentation and alienation. This failure underscores the paradox of mimicry. While it destabilizes colonial authority by exposing its contradiction, it can also entrap the colonized in a liminal space, leading to identity, loss, and disempowerment. These are my references, and thank you. Now for your questions.
So, Bhumi, my question is that I would like to know your view that if Bertha had a chance to confront Jane directly, how might she warn Jane about Mr. Rochester's true nature, and how would Jane respond to Bertha's perspective on their shared connection?
Okay. So first, I personally think that she would, even if she confronted Jane, she would not be against, like, I personally believe this, like, she would tell the sad things that happened to her, but she would not say anything against Mr. Rochester, because her character is repressed like that. We see that there is she's not able to fight for herself many times. So there is a possibility of that. And another thing about Jane, so Jane as a character is quite an understanding person. When she finds out about Bertha being like this, she instantly stops her relationship with Mr. Rochester. So I think by knowing his cruelty, Jane would not even want to see Mr. Rochester's face again.
Bhumi, my question is for you. Is Antoinette able to overcome the phase of mimicry and achieve her self-identity as a Creole? Or is there a room for not being a mad woman?
Sadly, she does not escape this mimicry. We see that it has a great psychological toll on her, and because of that, she somewhere fails creating her own identity. And as for being not being the mad woman in the attic, I personally believe that if Mr. Rochester had even a little amount of decency, some sort of kindness for her, then she might not have ended like that. If he had tried to understand her why she's doing that, if he had made her feel comfortable and told her that you don't need to become English to be accepted, you can be accepted as you are. If he had said that, then maybe there was a chance of not being the mad woman in the attic. But sadly, so thank you.